Hey, good people, welcome back to my channel and let's get right into it. So, how many of you love to be able to say to the other person, I'm right, you're wrong? Yeah, oh man. If you're like me, right, you love to hear those words, especially right after a heated debate. I mean, come on, I don't blame you. It feels good. It makes you feel like, I'm the boss, right? I'm the big one on the block, right? And what's even better is when that other person openly comes back to you and says, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong. Oh man, come on, that's golden. I mean, you can't ask for anything a better way to end that argument, right? But let me ask you, now that you've won that argument and you've won that debate, what do you have? Did you get a trophy? Did you get a prize? Did you get a certificate? Yeah, probably not. Okay. So consider this, that if that argument led to making someone, through you proving them wrong, if now that they feel inferior, if they feel deflated or defeated, there's a great chance that when that fight is over, they're really not liking you a whole lot right about now, right? Okay, so there's an animosity between you and that other person. And needless to say, your relationship probably suffered a bit from it. Probably not totally damaged it. You know, we're not going to divorce court or anything like that, or we're not just going to stop calling each other, but it chipped away at it a bit, right? And so here's the worst part, that after that argument, the only way to move forward, it's so uncomfortable at this point, is that somebody's got to come back and says, I'm sorry, my bad, because there's still some tension in the air, and it's got to get cleared in order to move forward, right? But have you considered this? Have you considered that maybe you're going about it the all wrong way? And the fact that you're trying to win is going to cost you more in the end. Okay. So now, if you've already disagreed with me and you are someone who has a thrill of winning an argument, I hate to say it, but this episode just might not be for you. And that's okay. That's fine. Okay. But if you're willing to stick it out with me just a little bit longer, let me show you why. So let's first talk about an argument. Let's define that for a moment. Okay. So, well, in its simplistic form, an argument is a battle of emotions on opposing sides. And because it's an argument, nobody's getting their way, right? Um, so why don't we argue? The question is, why do we argue instead of using a basic level-headed communication that we're all capable of? And well, there's an easy answer for that. And the easy answer is because we're humans, right? And in being a human, that means that we're filled with different sentiments, we're filled with different opinions, and we're filled with different feelings. And quite honestly, that's what makes us unique. And now it's those emotions that typically will play a pivotal role in how we survive. It also plays a role in our social connections, and it also plays a role in our emotional intelligence, right? But here's the problem. Anytime that we use those emotions as a method to persuade another person, it can create a messy environment, okay? So now here's the thing that most of us don't realize. When you're arguing with someone and the person that you see that you're actually arguing with, that isn't actually the person you're arguing with. That's a different person. Sounds confusing, doesn't it? Well, let's unpack this. Let's unpack this. But first, here's a fun fact that goes with all of this. Everybody has multiple layers, okay? And quite often, when the person is arguing with you, they're upset, they're spewing all kinds of words, they're angry, right? You're only experiencing one of their layers, just one of their layers, and that's the surface layer is what you're experiencing right now. So what's really happening underneath? What's happening on the other layers? Well, what's happening is there's a need for connection, there's a need for resolution, and then there's a need for satisfaction, okay? But those needs that are on the other layer, they may not have anything to do with the argument at hand, okay? So, but before we dig any deeper, if what you heard sparked something in you, I want you to please like and subscribe so that you can work the algorithm so we can stay together and you can continue to level up with me. All right. All right. So let's get into it. Today's episode actually is credited to a book by Dale Carnegie, and the book is titled You Can't Win an Argument. Right. So now let's look at things at a wider lens. Now, in today's society, competition has convinced all of us, convinced the entire world that we need to be split into two sides. And the two sides are you got to have winners and you're going to have losers. And you're going to have the rights and you're going to have the wrongs. Sounds familiar? So, prime example. Let's say the morning after a political debate, right? We all go to work the next day. What's the first thing most people ask each other about the debate? What's the common question? It sounds a little bit like, who do you think won the debate? Right? Sounds familiar? So, how come we don't say, who do you think made the most logical point? We don't ask that question. Why? Because a debate is a competition, and competition is directly tied to winning, right? So, hear me out. Competition at its core, at its whole, is not a bad thing. So, don't think that I'm sitting here, saying that we should not compete, because I think that's actually a good thing. Competition is, for me anyway, is considered a positive way that a person can identify their potential, and it also can identify the weakness, right? Because competition, when you lose a race or you lose a fight or you lose a game, that can tell you what you need to work on, right? So I love competitiveness. Heck, I've been watching the NBA finals and I want the Knicks to win. So, but anyway, here's the problem. Somewhere along the lines, we have blurred the lines of competition, and we've transferred that same competitive energy into our arguments and debates and disagreements. Now, that's a problem. So here we're finding more pleasure in dismissing another person, contradicting their views, and we're doing it all for the sake of a win. Yeah, that's huge, right? And now we're more focused on proving them wrong instead of just sitting back and trying to find a way to understand what they're trying to say. So when I say you can't win an argument, what do I mean? I mean is that you won't be able to convince them. You won't. You won't be able to convince them. No matter how much logic you use, it just won't happen. And so research has shown that 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 arguments, the argument will end with both sides feeling more convinced that he or she is absolutely right. Right? And that's why a lot of arguments tend to come up later on in other arguments, right? The problem tends to surface itself somewhere else. So in the end, when you're wrong, you're wrong. But when you're right, you're still wrong. So remember that prize I just finished talking about? So that prize that you're going to get, well, that's the prize of a damaged relationship. That's what it is. So let's talk about fixing this. How do we level up our approach to an argument? Well, I got 5 steps for you. I hope you have a pen and paper handy. 5 steps. So first things first, number 1, I want you to make sure to shift but share. So shift and share your mindset with that other person, right? And so what that means is you have to be clear. You have to be clear to that other person that you're actually looking for a solution to this problem versus just trying to be contradictory or argumentative, okay? You have to let them know exactly what your goal is for saying what you're saying. Number 2, by the way, communication is key with all of this. Communication is huge. So number 2, the next thing is I want you to try to implement active listening. So in one of my earlier episodes, we talk about active listening and what that sounds like and what you need to do to be able to be considered an active listening. So I suggest you look at that episode. But being an active listener is going to require you to do 2 things. It's requiring you to respect and acknowledge their perspective. And so what that means is you need to take yourself out of the emotions of the words and try to view things from their point of view. Okay. Sometimes I think we actually forget that disparaging comments, they usually don't always have anything to do with the actual argument that's taken place, right? So when you think about an argument in hindsight, a lot of the comments that go back and forth could have easily just become collateral damage from a previous incident. Okay. And number three now. And number three is regarding a point that a lot of us tend to overlook. We tend to overlook, in the sake of a win, that in the debate, usually what comes up is a common ground. There's a common point or a common goal that both of us or both of you are trying to achieve, right? And we don't even hear it because we're so focused on hearing ourselves talk. We're so focused in getting our point across that we don't hear the common ground. So we need to slow the argument down a bit. And the moment you hear it, I want you to lock into it and then use that common ground as a springboard to lead into more of a level headed conversation. Okay. The fourth tip is, now this fourth tip is going to require some accountability on both parts. But because I'm talking to you, it's going to require you to be the first one to step out and do it. Okay. Now, I want you to think about the long-term effects that your actions could possibly have on your relationship. Yeah. And because what I don't want us to do is I don't want us to sacrifice our relationships for the sake of a fleeting moment of a win. That's what we don't want to have happen, right? Because that fleeting moment, again, it's going to be gone within a day or so. And then what you're left with is a tumultuous relationship. And then the fifth step, this is a huge one. This is a biggie, guys. We have to regulate our emotions. We have to regulate our emotions. So one of the things that, that you'll come to find when you practice these steps is that an emotional person will typically use emotions in all of their dialogues to try to prove a point, right? So with them, when it's time for them to reach an analytical or a logical person, it's probably 9 times out of 10, it's going to end in a fight or flight scenario. Okay. But for an intelligent person, someone who's leveled up, they're the ones that's going to understand that emotions are good, but they also realize that emotions, they have to be balanced out with both logic and objectivity so that both parties can have a win, right? So both people walk away feeling like they have a win-win situation that just took place. When I think about all of this, I think about, something my mom used to tell me. She used to say that it's better to just let go, so that your relationship can be preserved. And we're not just talking about marriages. We're not just talking about dating. We're talking about your working relationships, your professional, your personal relationships, all of those. Okay. And now here's one last piece. One last piece that I believe is a key principle in all of this. And this key principle comes from a quote from Mark Twain. And the quote says that not only can you not win an argument, but you really can't win one with a fool. So when you lose that argument, I want you to make sure it's to a person that is worthy of your loss, so you don't get dragged down to their level. Otherwise, they're just going to beat you with experience. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me today. Put it into motion and let the frequency speak for itself. Stay blessed. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care.